A mogul noticed bruises hidden by Maid's daughter. The discovery broke him. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now let's dive into the story. In the heart of a sprawling mansion, where the polished floors gleamed under the weight of affluence and power, the mansion stood as a symbol of success, a towering fortress made of wealth. The rooms were filled with expensive furniture, ornate chandeliers, and artwork that cost more than the average person's lifetime earnings. Yet, amid this display of luxury, there was one room where the opulence barely mattered. In the shadows of this mansion, a story was quietly unfolding that would bring even the mightiest mogul to his knees. Her name was Lily, a quiet figure who moved silently through the mansion, always keeping her head down, always staying out of sight. She was the maid's daughter, the invisible one who lived in the corners, cleaning up after the powerful without a second thought. Her mother, Maria, worked tirelessly in the mansion's vast kitchens, scrubbing pots and serving meals to the mogul and his family. Lily had been raised in this world, but it wasn't her world. She knew her place, to serve, to stay unnoticed, and to keep her pain hidden, and no one ever noticed. But today, as Lily passed by a hallway, her sleeve caught on a doorframe, and the mogul, Mr. Douglas Montgomery, noticed something that would change everything. He had been walking down the grand corridor, his mind preoccupied with the business deals and investments that filled his day. As he walked past the kitchen, his eyes briefly flicked over Lily, and for a moment, he froze. There, just beneath the cuff of her sleeve, was a faint bruise, dark and unmistakable. He didn't think much of it at first, but then another bruise, barely visible, caught his attention. He stopped in his tracks. He stared at the girl, his thoughts racing. What was going on? He was used to seeing the workers here, but he had never really looked at them, not like this. He had seen them as background figures, shadows in his life, always in the periphery. But now, something in Lily's eyes told him that there was more to her than met the eye. What he saw in that brief moment would haunt him forever. As he stood there, frozen in place, he realized that the bruises on her arms were not just random accidents. They were signs of something deeper, something painful. The wealth, the power, the success he had fought for, all of it suddenly felt hollow. It was as if the entire world he had built came crashing down in an instant. He had never known this side of his household. He had never known the cost of his empire, the lives of the people who worked for him. And in that moment, the mogul felt something he hadn't felt in years: guilt. He had turned a blind eye to the very people who made his success possible. As Lily hurried away, trying to keep her head down, Mr. Montgomery knew he had to find out more. Something wasn't right, and he needed to understand it. What had he missed? Why had he never noticed before? And most importantly, why was he so shaken by it now? Stay tuned to find out how this discovery would change everything. And remember, if you've ever felt like you were overlooked, ignored, or underestimated, this story will speak to you. As the days went by, Mr. Douglas Montgomery found himself unable to shake the image of Lily's bruises. He had seen her pass by the grand staircase once more, her face as stoic as ever, but now something had changed. The woman who had once been invisible to him was now at the center of his thoughts. His mind raced as he tried to make sense of the situation. He had built an empire, a fortress of wealth and power, but it felt as though the foundation had cracked with a single glance. He began to notice things he had never paid attention to before. Lily's movements were always careful, like she was trying to avoid being seen. She would look down when she spoke to anyone, as though she was afraid of being noticed. Her eyes, once filled with a quiet determination, now seemed distant, almost haunted. As the days passed, Mr. Montgomery could no longer ignore the nagging feeling that something was terribly wrong. He had a staff of people, each with a specific role, but none of them ever made him feel like he had truly seen them. Not until now. It wasn't just the bruises. It was the silence that surrounded Lily. He had never heard her voice rise in protest, never seen her take a step towards something she desired. She was simply a shadow, always present but never acknowledged. He had been blinded by his own success, focusing on the deals, the meetings, the million-dollar contracts, and had never once asked himself how those around him were truly living. On the third evening after noticing Lily's bruises, Mr. Montgomery decided to confront the situation. He had to know what was going on. He couldn't live with the feeling of being complicit in something that might be far worse than he imagined. He walked to the kitchen, where Maria, Lily's mother, was busy preparing dinner. The warm scent of roasted meat and herbs filled the air, a stark contrast to the tension building in Mr. Montgomery's chest. "Maria," he said, his voice calm but firm, "there's something I need to know. How is Lily?" Maria paused, her hands freezing mid-motion. She looked up at him, her face clouded with worry. She knew exactly what he meant. "She's fine, sir," she replied quietly, her eyes avoiding his gaze. But Mr. Montgomery could tell that wasn't the truth. "Maria, I've seen her. I've seen the bruises. I know something is wrong. I need you to tell me the truth." The silence in the room hung heavy, broken only by the distant sound of a clock ticking on the wall. Maria's hands trembled as she placed the knife down. Her shoulders slumped, and for the first time, Mr. Montgomery saw the weight of her exhaustion. "I never wanted you to know," she whispered, her voice cracking. "But you're right. She's been going through something terrible. And I don't know what to do." The words were a blow, and Mr. Montgomery felt the air leave his lungs. He had no idea how bad things had gotten, how much pain his household had been hiding. Maria finally broke down and told him everything. The bruises, the cruelty, the abuse Lily had been suffering at the hands of her stepfather, who had moved into their lives a year ago. He had threatened her, manipulated her, and used his power over them to make their lives a living nightmare. Mr. Montgomery stood there, his face growing pale. He had no idea that something so monstrous had been happening under his own roof. He had been blind to the suffering of the very people who kept his life running smoothly. His thoughts raced. How had he not seen this before? How had he allowed this to go unnoticed? He was the mogul, the one with the power, yet he had been blind to the most important thing, the well-being of the people who worked for him. He had to make things right. He had to do something. But what could he do? The weight of the truth hung over him, and for the first time in a long while, Mr. Montgomery felt helpless. The moment of realization had shattered his world, but it was also the moment when everything began to change. In the days that followed, Mr. Douglas Montgomery could not find peace. The weight of the discovery sat heavily on his chest, his mind replaying Maria's words over and over again. His world had been upended, and with it, a deep sense of guilt consumed him. He had spent years building his empire, forging deals, securing his wealth, and living a life of comfort and luxury. But in that moment, standing in the kitchen, he realized that all of his success meant nothing if he had failed the people who helped make it all possible. He could not unsee the pain Lily had endured, the bruises that told a story he had refused to acknowledge. As the days passed, he found himself growing more restless. His thoughts constantly drifted back to the young girl who had been forced to hide her suffering, to live in the shadows of his mansion. He knew he had to do something to right the wrongs, to protect her, to make sure she would never again have to endure what she had suffered. One evening, Mr. Montgomery decided he could no longer stand idly by. He had to act. He called his lawyer, Daniel Brooks, a man who had been with him for years. "Daniel, I need you to meet me at the mansion," Mr. Montgomery said, his voice firm. "I have a situation that requires immediate action." When Daniel arrived, Mr. Montgomery wasted no time. He explained the whole situation, the bruises, the abuse, the years of pain Lily had endured. Daniel's face went pale as he listened. "This is a serious matter, Douglas," he said, his voice low. "We need to act quickly. We have to get Lily away from this environment and make sure she's safe." The plan was set in motion immediately. Mr. Montgomery arranged for Lily to be placed in a secure facility, a place where she could heal, both physically and emotionally. He also made arrangements to have her stepfather removed from the household, ensuring that he would no longer be able to harm her. But Mr. Montgomery didn't stop there. He knew that this wasn't just about removing the abuser. It was about changing the system he had allowed to exist for so long. He started making calls, reaching out to child advocacy groups, social workers, and even law enforcement, to ensure that Lily would have all the support she needed to rebuild her life. He worked tirelessly, making sure every detail was in place, every legal document signed, and every person who needed to be involved was contacted. Days turned into weeks as Mr. Montgomery took on a new role, one he had never expected to play. It was no longer about business or power. It was about doing what was right. As he sat in his office late one evening, staring out at the city skyline, he thought about the transformation that had taken place in him. He had been blind to the suffering around him for so long, focused on his wealth and status. But now, he was seeing the world through different eyes. He had the power to make a difference, to change the course of someone's life, and he was going to do everything in his power to make sure that Lily's future was a bright one. The journey was just beginning, but one thing was clear. Mr. Montgomery had found a new purpose, one that would change not only his life but the lives of those he had once overlooked. As the weeks passed, the changes that Mr. Douglas Montgomery had set in motion began to take effect. Lily was now staying at a secure facility, one that offered her the care and attention she so desperately needed. It wasn't perfect, but it was a safe space, a place where she could finally begin to heal from the trauma she had endured for so long. The bruises that once marred her arms were slowly fading, but the emotional scars would take time to heal. As for Mr. Montgomery, the events had irrevocably altered his perspective. He found himself dedicating more and more time to the cause of child advocacy. His meetings, once focused on the expansion of his business empire, were now filled with discussions about providing resources for vulnerable children, funding support programs, and ensuring that no one in his household would ever experience what Lily had. The Mogul had become a man on a mission. One afternoon, he sat in his office, reviewing a new proposal for a partnership with a national child welfare organization. He was so engrossed in the details of the proposal that he barely noticed the knock at the door. "Mr. Montgomery," a voice called, pulling him from his thoughts. He looked up to see Maria standing in the doorway, her face filled with a quiet hope. "Yes, Maria? What is it?" he asked, immediately sensing that something was different. "Lily. She wants to speak with you," Maria said, her voice trembling slightly. Mr. Montgomery stood, his heart racing. It had been weeks since he last saw Lily, and although he had sent letters and made sure she received the best care, nothing could replace the personal connection. "Of course. I'll go see her right now," he said, his voice filled with urgency. He followed Maria to the facility where Lily was staying, his steps quickening with every stride. When they arrived, Lily was sitting in a quiet room, looking out the window. She turned when she heard the door open, and for the first time in weeks, a small but genuine smile appeared on her face. Mr. Montgomery stood in the doorway for a moment, watching her. He had seen her as just a shadow in his life, a part of the background, but now he saw her as a young woman who had suffered greatly, yet still had the strength to face each day. "Lily," he said softly, stepping into the room, "I'm so glad to see you." Her smile widened, and for a brief moment, she looked like the little girl she once was, the one who had tried to hide her pain from the world. "Mr. Montgomery," she said, her voice soft but steady. "Thank you for everything." The words were simple, but they carried a weight that Mr. Montgomery felt deeply. He had done what he could, but he knew this was just the beginning of a long journey. "You don't have to thank me, Lily," he replied, his voice filled with emotion. "I'm just doing what's right." They sat together in silence for a while, the weight of their shared history settling between them. Finally, Lily spoke again, her voice trembling slightly. "I don't know what I would have done without you," she said. "You gave me a chance to live again." Mr. Montgomery felt a lump form in his throat. He had spent so much of his life focused on the world of business, on deals and profits, but now he realized that the true value of his life lay in the lives he could help change. As they talked, Lily slowly began to open up about her past, about the pain she had endured, and about her hopes for the future. It was a difficult conversation, but it was also a necessary one. Mr. Montgomery promised her that he would be there every step of the way, that he would help her rebuild her life. And, in that moment, he knew that this was the most important thing he had ever done. The journey was far from over, but for the first time, Mr. Montgomery felt as though he was finally on the right path. A path that would not only change Lily's life, but his as well. In the weeks that followed, Mr. Douglas Montgomery found himself deeply invested in Lily's journey to recovery. No longer was he just the mogul who built his fortune off business deals and investments. He was now a man who had discovered the true meaning of empathy and responsibility. As Lily began to heal emotionally, the bond between them grew stronger. Mr. Montgomery spent hours at the facility, talking to therapists, making sure Lily had everything she needed, and learning about the impact of abuse on children. The Mogul had never imagined that one moment of noticing a bruise on a young girl could completely shift his life's purpose. His staff, his business, even his own family began to notice the change in him. He was no longer the same distant figure they had known. He was involved, concerned, and most importantly, he was trying to make a difference. But there were challenges ahead. Lily, although grateful for his help, still struggled with the trauma of her past. She had a long road to recovery, and her trust in others was something that would take time to rebuild. Every day was a battle, and sometimes she would retreat into herself, unsure of whether she would ever feel safe or whole again. Mr. Montgomery knew that healing wasn't something that could be rushed. He had learned that from his years in business. Success didn't come overnight, and neither did trust or recovery. But he was committed to being there for Lily every step of the way. One evening, after a particularly difficult therapy session for Lily, she sat alone in the garden of the facility, her eyes lost in thought. Mr. Montgomery, who had been in a meeting nearby, found himself walking toward her. He had come to realize that despite his wealth and power, the most important thing he could offer her now was his time, his presence, and his unwavering support. "Lily," he called softly, sitting beside her. She turned to him, a faint smile touching her lips, but it was clear the weight of her pain still lingered. "I don't know if I can ever truly be free from all this," she said quietly, her voice tinged with doubt. "The memories, the fear, they're always there." Mr. Montgomery's heart ached for her. He had seen her go through so much, and although he couldn't take away her past, he could help her create a new future. "It's okay to feel that way," he said gently. "Healing takes time. You don't have to have it all figured out right now. But I promise you, you're not alone in this. I'll be with you, no matter how long it takes." Lily looked at him, her eyes filled with both uncertainty and a glimmer of hope. "Thank you," she whispered. It wasn't much, but it was a step. A small step toward healing. As the days passed, Lily continued her therapy and began to open up more about her past. It wasn't easy, and it wasn't always linear, but with each passing day, she grew stronger. The people around her, especially Mr. Montgomery, continued to show her that she was worthy of love and respect. Mr. Montgomery also took steps to ensure that Lily's stepfather would never have the chance to hurt her again. He pressed charges, and within weeks, the man was arrested and removed from the household permanently. The legal system, however slow, was another way in which Mr. Montgomery sought justice for Lily. The change in him had rippled outward, influencing those around him. His employees began to take notice of how much he cared about the people in his life, not just their work. They saw a man who had once been consumed by the chase for success, now deeply committed to ensuring that everyone, regardless of their position or status, was treated with dignity and respect. For the first time in a long while, Mr. Montgomery felt like he was doing something that truly mattered. His life was no longer defined by wealth and power, but by his ability to help heal the broken parts of others. The journey wasn't over, and there were still challenges ahead, but for Mr. Montgomery, the path he was walking now felt more meaningful than anything he had ever achieved in his career. He had discovered the true power of compassion, and it was a power that would change not only Lily's life, but his as well. The progress that Lily had made in her recovery was visible to everyone around her. She had gone from a quiet, withdrawn young girl to someone who was slowly but surely finding her voice. Each day, she faced her past, confronting the deep emotional scars that had been left by years of abuse and neglect. But now, she was beginning to realize that she was more than her past, and that her future could be different. With the support of Mr. Douglas Montgomery and the therapy she had been receiving, Lily found the courage to take small steps forward. It was not always easy, and there were still moments when the weight of her past felt overwhelming. But she was determined to heal, to build a life where she could feel safe, loved, and valued. Mr. Montgomery had kept his promise. He had been there for her, not just financially, but emotionally. He made sure she never felt alone, offering her a sense of security she had never known before. He attended her therapy sessions when he could, helping to bridge the gap between her past and her future. He also became her biggest advocate, making sure that her stepfather would never again have the opportunity to hurt her. The legal proceedings had gone smoothly, and her stepfather was held accountable for his actions. Mr. Montgomery knew that the road ahead for Lily would not be without challenges, but he was ready to walk that road with her. As the months passed, Lily's confidence grew. She began to make new friends, people who accepted her for who she was, not for the pain she had endured. She even started to explore hobbies and interests that had been buried deep inside her, things she had once loved but had been too afraid to pursue. One evening, as Mr. Montgomery sat in his office, reviewing new business proposals, his phone rang. It was a call from Lily. "Mr. Montgomery, I've been thinking about something," she said, her voice a little uncertain. "What if I went back to school? I want to finish my education. I want to become someone who can help other people, just like you've helped me." Mr. Montgomery's heart swelled with pride. It was a simple request, but it was a request that showed how far Lily had come. "I think that's a wonderful idea, Lily," he replied. "I'll make sure you have everything you need. You deserve the chance to build the life you want, and I'll be here to support you every step of the way." Over time, Lily enrolled in a local community college, and her journey into higher education began. It wasn't an easy road, but with each class she completed, she gained a deeper sense of purpose. She wanted to help other children who had been through similar experiences, to give them the same hope and opportunity that Mr. Montgomery had given her. As for Mr. Montgomery, his life had been transformed. He had never expected to find a new purpose, but in helping Lily, he had found a cause worth fighting for. He realized that his success in business had never brought him the fulfillment that true human connection and compassion could. He continued to support Lily's education, but he also dedicated more of his time and resources to organizations that helped children in need. His business ventures were no longer the center of his world. Instead, it was the lives he touched, the difference he made in the world, that brought him true satisfaction. It was clear to him now that the most important legacy he could leave behind was not a towering empire of wealth, but the knowledge that he had helped to heal a broken soul and given someone the tools to rebuild their life. In a world where success was often measured in profits and achievements, Mr. Montgomery had discovered a different kind of success, one that was defined by kindness, generosity, and the ability to make a real difference in the lives of others. And as for Lily, her journey had just begun. She was no longer the quiet, broken girl who had once hidden in the shadows. She was a young woman with a future ahead of her, a future she could now face with hope, strength, and the knowledge that she was worthy of love and success. Months passed, and Lily's transformation was nothing short of remarkable. She had settled into her routine at college, excelling in her studies and slowly gaining the confidence she once lacked. The shy, withdrawn girl who had first stepped into the facility was now a young woman with dreams, ambition, and a fire inside her to make a difference in the world. Her passion for helping children who had suffered like she had began to shape her future. With each class she attended, she discovered new strengths within herself. Her desire to become a counselor or a social worker grew stronger, and the knowledge that she could change the lives of others fueled her determination. But the road was still not without its challenges. While Lily was finding her path, her stepfather's shadow loomed over her, a painful reminder of the darkness she had left behind. Although the legal battle had removed him from their lives, the emotional scars remained. Every now and then, memories would flood back, the terror, the isolation, the helplessness. But Lily had learned how to cope. She had learned to ask for help, to not carry the burden alone. Mr. Montgomery continued to be a steady presence in her life, offering her encouragement and support. He had become more than just the man who had given her a second chance. He had become a mentor, a friend, and a source of stability. They would meet regularly, discussing her progress, her goals, and sometimes just sharing stories of their lives. One afternoon, as Lily sat in the small cafe on campus, preparing for an upcoming exam, she received a call from Mr. Montgomery. "Lily, I just wanted to check in and see how you're doing," he said warmly. "I know you're working hard, and I'm proud of the progress you've made." His words meant more to her than he could have known. She had grown so used to feeling invisible, to being overlooked, that to hear someone acknowledge her efforts, truly acknowledge them, was both new and deeply comforting. "Thank you, Mr. Montgomery. I'm doing well, just a little nervous about the exam. But I'll be okay," Lily replied, a hint of a smile tugging at the corners of her lips. You'll do great. You've already proven that you're stronger than anything life throws at you, he reassured her. Just remember, you have a whole team behind you. Me, your professors, your friends. Don't be afraid to lean on us. As the conversation ended, Lily felt a sense of peace settle over her. She had come so far from the terrified girl who had hidden her pain from the world. Now, she was facing her fears head-on, carving out a future for herself. A future where she would no longer be a victim of her circumstances, but a powerful force for change. Mr. Montgomery's words echoed in her mind long after the call ended. She had a team behind her, but more importantly, she had the strength within herself to keep moving forward. Her healing was no longer a solitary journey. She had built a network of people who believed in her, and she had begun to believe in herself as well. As for Mr. Montgomery, his role in Lily's life had profoundly impacted him as well. Watching her grow, helping her through the darkest moments of her past, had taught him more than any business deal or corporate strategy ever could. He had learned that true fulfillment did not come from wealth or success, but from using his resources to make a real difference in someone else's life. He had discovered the power of compassion, the transformative nature of kindness. As Lily continued to excel in her education and work toward her dream of helping others, Mr. Montgomery made a decision that would change the course of his own future. He decided to establish a foundation dedicated to supporting children who had experienced trauma and abuse. The foundation would provide scholarships, therapy, and resources to help young people rebuild their lives, just as Lily had. He wanted to ensure that every child who had been through what Lily had would have a chance at a better future. The foundation was his way of paying it forward, of ensuring that the change he had seen in Lily was not an isolated incident, but a ripple that could spread out and affect many others. He knew it wouldn't be easy, but he was ready to put in the work. As the days turned into months, Lily's future became brighter, and Mr. Montgomery found peace in knowing that he had played a part in shaping that future. Together, they had shown that no matter how dark the past, there was always a path forward, a path to healing, hope, and new beginnings. Months turned into a year, and the growth both Lily and Mr. Montgomery had experienced was palpable. Lily had not only finished her first year of college, but had also taken on an internship at a local nonprofit dedicated to helping children in foster care. It was a step that showed how much she had embraced her newfound purpose in life. She had taken everything Mr. Montgomery had taught her and applied it to her own journey. She had become an advocate for others, using her story to help break the silence surrounding child abuse. As Lily became more involved in her studies and work, she began to see the world in an entirely new light. She was no longer the girl hiding from her past. She was now a young woman who had learned to face her fears, to speak up, and to help others do the same. Her relationship with Mr. Montgomery had evolved, as well. They were no longer just the mentor and the girl he had saved. They had become family, a bond forged through mutual respect, kindness, and the shared understanding that healing was an ongoing process. One evening, Lily sat with Mr. Montgomery at his office. It was late, and they were discussing the future of the foundation he had created in her name. The foundation had grown, providing scholarships, legal aid, and therapy to countless children in need. Mr. Montgomery had taken the lessons he had learned from Lily and applied them to every aspect of the foundation, ensuring it would help as many children as possible. As they talked about future goals and expanding the foundation's reach, Lily felt a sense of pride. It was hard to believe that just a year ago, she had been a girl overwhelmed by trauma, unsure of what her future would hold. Now, she was an integral part of something bigger than herself, something that would make a lasting impact. "I can't believe how far we've come," she said quietly, her voice filled with emotion. Mr. Montgomery looked at her, his gaze warm and sincere. "You've come so far, Lily. You're doing incredible work, and I'm proud of everything you've accomplished. But I think you'll go even further than this. I know you will." His words meant everything to her. They weren't just the words of a mentor. They were the words of someone who had seen her at her lowest and now stood beside her as she soared. "I couldn't have done it without you," Lily said, her voice thick with gratitude. "You gave me the chance to start over. You showed me that I was worth something." Mr. Montgomery nodded, the gravity of the moment settling in. "You always were worth something, Lily. I just had to help you see it." That evening, as Lily left the office, she looked up at the city skyline. a smile tugging at the corners of her lips. She had found her place in the world. She had found her voice, her purpose, and her strength. And she knew that her story wasn't just hers anymore. It was the story of countless others who had been overlooked, neglected, or mistreated, but who had the chance to rise above it all. In the months that followed, the foundation continued to thrive, and Lily became known as an advocate for children's rights and an example of resilience. Her story was shared in schools, communities, and conferences across the country, and it inspired many to take action. For the first time in her life, Lily felt truly proud of who she was and what she had achieved. And for Mr. Montgomery, the impact Lily had on his life and the world around them was immeasurable. He had started this journey believing that he was helping one young girl. What he didn't realize was that by helping her, he had changed the course of both their lives. Together, they had built something that would outlast them both, a legacy of healing, hope, and empowerment. As time went on, both Lily and Mr. Montgomery found themselves forever changed by the experiences they had shared. Lily had transformed from a broken young girl into a confident woman, someone who had not only healed, but was now helping others heal as well. She had become a leader, a voice for those who had been silenced, and an advocate for children who had suffered as she once had. Her work with the foundation had expanded, and she was now involved in training other counselors and social workers to recognize the signs of abuse and trauma in children. She had become a beacon of hope, not just for herself, but for thousands of others. Mr. Montgomery, on the other hand, had found peace in a way he never thought possible. His life, once centered around the pursuit of wealth and success, had been completely transformed. He now spent his days working alongside Lily, supporting the foundation, and dedicating himself to a cause that was far greater than anything he had ever achieved in the business world. He had come to realize that true fulfillment was not measured in profits or achievements, but in the lives he had touched and the impact he had made. One day, as Mr. Montgomery sat in his office, going over the latest reports from the foundation, he received a call from Lily. Her voice was filled with excitement as she spoke. "Mr. Montgomery, I have some incredible news. The foundation has been selected to receive a major grant to expand our work in underserved communities. It's a huge opportunity." Mr. Montgomery could hear the joy in her voice, and he felt a surge of pride. "That's amazing, Lily. I knew you could do it. Your hard work is finally paying off." He paused for a moment, his thoughts drifting to all they had accomplished together. "But I also want you to know that this success is yours. You've done all of this, Lily. You've built this from the ground up, and I'm just honored to be part of your journey." Lily's voice softened with emotion. "I couldn't have done it without you. You gave me the strength to keep going, too. Keep fighting for something bigger than myself." The gratitude in her words meant the world to Mr. Montgomery. He had watched her grow, and he had seen the power of her resilience and determination. She had become the very person he had hoped she would be, someone who would change the world for the better. Over the next few years, the foundation continued to thrive. Lily's impact reached far beyond what anyone could have imagined. She had become a national figure, speaking at conferences and appearing on television, sharing her story and advocating for the rights of children everywhere. But no matter how much success she achieved, she remained humble and grounded, always remembering where she came from and the people who had helped her along the way. Mr. Montgomery, too, had found his own sense of fulfillment. The foundation had become his legacy, one that would outlive him. He had invested not only his wealth but his heart into it, and the results were evident. It was a testament to the power of compassion and the belief that anyone, no matter their past, could create a better future for themselves and others. As the years passed, both Lily and Mr. Montgomery continued their work, side by side, changing lives and giving hope to those who needed it most. And although their paths had diverged from the world of business and wealth, they had found something far more valuable, a sense of purpose, a sense of family, and the knowledge that they had truly made a difference in the world. The legacy they had built together was one of healing, empowerment, and the unwavering belief that kindness could change lives. Looking back, both of them knew that the journey they had taken together, from tragedy to triumph, was the greatest success they would ever achieve. In this compelling tale of transformation, a young girl's life is changed forever through the intervention of a millionaire, whose path crosses with hers in the most unexpected of ways. This is a powerful example of how one person's kindness can have a lasting impact, and it's one of the most heartwarming millionaire stories you'll hear. Starting from a place of hardship and abuse, this story shows how the mogul, who once focused solely on wealth and business, learns the true value of compassion. Through helping a young girl escape her traumatic past, he begins to see the world in a new light, discovering that there's more to life than just financial success. As the millionaire takes on the role of a mentor and protector, he becomes more than just a figure of authority. He becomes a catalyst for change, both for himself and for the young girl whose life he changes. This journey of healing, growth, and redemption is a testament to the power of second chances and how anyone can make a difference in the world, no matter their background. If you're fascinated by real-life millionaire stories that focus on human connection and kindness, this one will resonate with you deeply. Watch as this millionaire's life is transformed by his involvement in a young girl's journey from trauma to triumph, reminding us all that success isn't just about money. It's about the lives we touch along the way. The millionaire's story of redemption and the young girl's rise from adversity are just a few of the reasons why this tale is among the most inspiring millionaire stories you'll encounter. With compassion and perseverance, they create a lasting legacy of hope, proving that millionaire stories can be about far more than just wealth, but about making the world a better place.